Sheffield United 2, Everton 2. It's your post-match as Everton pick up their first points of the season. First point of the season. It's not point yet, unfortunately. And they also scored 2 goals. That is plural. And yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. I've got Pete and Les with me as usual here. There's a lot to sort of talk about with this in various different ways, I think, lads, because it was a bit of a crazy game, I thought, in my opinion. I come to you first, Les, with this. Went 1-0 up. I thought we looked really good for a good half an hour or so. I thought this looks like a competent side. Now, we were passing it okay. We had a bit of tempo about us going forward. Defensively, looked quite compact as well. Only up until the point where we can see the really, really poor goal, which we'll go through in a sec. But what were your thoughts, first of all, on particularly in that first half?
Well, it was better than Villa away, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, we did look a lot better, but I mean, they're a poor side, aren't they? You know, you could see they're going to be down there with us come the end of the season. It was just, yeah, there was no reason for us to concede the way we did. It was just players switching off. Like you said, you'll go over that in a minute. But I think that was the frustrating thing. Although we did look relatively composed on the ball, passed it round all right. Those same mistakes were there with some slack passing, players switching off, and we're getting punished for it. I mean, the second goal was bad. It was unlucky, but again, it was bad. It just wasn't closing down the man properly. So yeah, it's frustrating to see the same sort of flaws in the game, and I don't know. It's still very worrying because if you look at it's the first point on the board to get 1 point out of those first 4 games. I mean, it's a little bit of a relief today because it could have been worse, especially at the end, as we'll talk about, I'm sure, before we finish. But yeah, it's frustrating really and quite worrying for me. I don't feel particularly buoyed by the display, to be honest, just because we just look so fragile still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've both kind of summed it up perfectly well there. To be honest with you, the first sort of half an hour, I thought we looked decent. The first goal that Sheffield United scored was just, it was exactly the same as some of the goals we scored against Villa, where the gap between the midfield and the centre halves was so huge. The centre halves dropped back into the box, and there's just that acre of space on the edge of the box. So all he had to do was literally pull back 5 yards, and he's totally open and free. And that's something we've got to address because that's done by design. They've targeted that area and they've deliberately tried to exploit that. And as I say, it's not the first time it's happened so far this season. So whether Decore or Garner have got to be more switched on, I think they both have, to be honest with you. When you actually look at the line, we've got a very flat 4 deep into the box, or on the edge of the 6-yard box. But then there's probably a good 20 yards between them and then where Decore and Garner are. So something's got to be done about that. We need to make sure that they're switched onto that big pocket of space, because that's where we're getting exploited the most at the moment. I thought in large patches of the game, I thought we did okay. That Danjuma chance as well, where we were 4-on-2 before they equalised. That was just absolute. Yeah. Oh, it was criminal. If it's the most frustrating thing about it as well is that before he goes to cut inside, he looks up so he can see that they've got 4-on-2. Yeah. And I don't. But
even when he does that, Pete, he's still got them next to him as well. He cuts inside, and you're thinking, just pat, and you scream and pass it, even just before he hits it. It's not like he's missed out on it as soon as he cuts inside. Those 3 lads, one next to one side and 2 next to the other, and he still goes for goal.
Well, that's it though. I expected him to pass once he cut in, because if you cut in, you get the defender to commit. Then the other one has to come. It's all in a split second. But once you cut in, then release the ball, because you've got another defender committed to you. It's just to me that was probably the biggest wasted opportunity of the day. I think at 2-0, it's a totally different kind of game. The second goal from them was just horrible. The second goal was just horrible. Just one of those things. Poor defending, but then the ricochet off the post to go in off Pickford was just horrendous.
Well, I mean, you can't account for that, but what you can account for, and I've had a lot of people disagreeing and debating in this in terms of the goals we can see. The first thing I wanted to say there about you saying about the what you said correctly was the gap between midfield and the centre backs and the full backs not tucking in. when they get free of our midfield and then have about 30 yards in front of the centre backs. I don't know if you guys seen it. I think it was on that Players Tribute. I'm not sure if it was a different podcast that did it, where it showed you Dice, when you do like a meeting with Dice and they do him an hour going through how he deals with like tactics and whatnot. And one of them, I remember it quite succinctly, was when he was talking about he used to pull in his midfield into a triangle that was in front of the back four. So the thing that'd be essential in our case, having just a gay deeper that sits in front of that back four. So when they get past the lads in front of him, he's able to close it down, so they then have to go out wide with it. And there was none of that. And then you look at that goal he scored there, Les. People initially saying to me, that doesn't happen if Patterson does his job and drops back. I felt differently that even if he got back, there's every chance that player cuts in onto his right foot anyway. And then Tarkowski, I personally think it was unforgivable that he didn't put a challenge into that. Because when you see it, and I've stopped the shot of it on, it's called TNT now, isn't it? Felt like TNT throwing it to me at the end. Where he cuts inside and has that shot which causes the goal from Pickford. Tarkowski, typical centre-back who he's built his career on, should be throwing every single part of his body at that. And he just sticks his little leg up. And it just goes to that point. That is infuriating as a centre-back. And I just could not stop getting out of my mind, at least until the half-time.
Yeah, I think the first goal, there was a bit of collective blame there, because there was so many on something different to stop him, like being stood on his own at the edge of the box. And it's like, at any level, you can't do that. You can't just leave the player on the edge of the box. It's unforgivable. It doesn't matter what level you're playing at. That is just basic stuff. And someone's got to take responsibility there, and no one did. The second one, as you say, Tarkowski, it's pointless just backing off and then dangling a leg out. You've got to pressure the man on the ball. You've got to. Don't throw yourself in, obviously, because he'll just skip past you. You've got to do more than that, especially the closer they get into the box. He's getting a good angle there. As I said, it was unlucky to go in off Pickford. But it was just really poor defending. He's I don't know, he's looked pretty shaky, hasn't he, Tarkowski, this season?
Yeah.
Got away with murder because Michael Keane was so bad.
That's an excellent point.
But I think today, I don't know, it was there to see for everyone, wasn't it? He wasn't good again. Apart from that block he did towards the end of the game, nearly took his head off.
Yeah.
Very clever what he did as well to go down, although I don't know if it sooner played on with 10 men rather than get Ben Godfrey on, but that's another conversation, I suppose. I think it's worrying because there's still those deficiencies in the squad. The players like Tarkowski aren't looking as good as last season. And then you look at that bench we had today, and it's like, I know there's a few players to come back potentially, but it's threadbare, isn't it? You think, if it goes off, you've got Keane or Godfrey to come on. That's it. I suppose at a push you could maybe put Mikalenko centre back, but it's not good. It's a terrible. It looks a terrible squad now. It looks weaker than last year, I think, at the minute, possibly. Although I suppose, I don't know, Beto looked good, so he looks much better than anything we've had.
Yeah,
potentially it could be a worse squad than last season. So I don't know. It's all very worrying because they're a terrible side. Sheffield United, they were rubbish.
Yeah.
So, and it's, if we're scrapping out for points against them, it makes you think, well, where are we actually going to get the points from? Because we play anyone good, it's going to take some effort to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that, what you just said there about playing that sort of side away from home, you haven't got much other teams in the league who you say, yeah, these are the ones we'll get points from. So in that case, you look at that, and it was much needed, wasn't it? Getting 3 points from that. I know we said that against Wolves as well, because these are the sides.
Played 3 teams. We thought we should get 3 points against these.
Yeah,
we've got 1 out of 9.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that's so worrying about it. And then, the bigger boys are yet to come, aren't they? In the coming weeks and months and all that. I mean, the game itself. I mean, if you're neutral watching that, Pete, you would have loved that. It would have been a really interesting for me to watch. Now we're talking about it. We actually were able to equalise and get a draw out of the game in the end. But there were so many different factors of this that you could go down in any which way you wanted to. In regards to fullbacks as well, mate, I just think there's so much naivety when we've got those lads there. And let's face it, Ashley Young, I know I'll bang on all the time about him being 38 and close to getting his pension, but he shouldn't. He should be knowing how to defend at left back because that's all he's done for the latter part of his career. That's all he did at Aston Villa, who had a brilliant season last season. He was playing left back for most of that 30 odd games. Why does it just look like he's just got an empty head when he's come to us playing at left back? And then that's not to mention how ridiculous he is at taking a set piece. There was one time in the second half where we nearly had a shot. In fact, we did. And I think it got given for a foul. I think it might have been Decore or Onana who had a header that went across goal. That was the only decent cross he put in that landed in the 6-yard box. Everything else with him, it's infuriating. And then similarly, Patterson the other side. I was ready to pull out what air I've got left because there's so many times where he's exposed. There's so many times positionally where I'm thinking, what's he been told to do? Is it either what he's been told to do or what he actually does with his own mentality when he's on the pitch? The lad's got a lot of talent, no denying that. He's one for the future, absolutely. But he's going to stick out like a sore thumb when you're playing in a side that's so poor anyway, and he's looking even worse. You're going to look like a player that nobody wants to play right back. I put on my Twitter, I'd rather have Steve Stone playing there instead of him, and Ian Moan playing for Ashley Young as well. They're the things that let us down for me, Pete. And then the centre back area, and I go back to it as well because nobody have really spoken about it. I don't think Branthwaite is going to be a top class centre back for many, many years to come. He got that yellow card, and 10 minutes in, and I thought, this is worrying me. He's still a bit of a kid. A red card. If you had, I would go as far as saying if you had a top class centre back or his equivalent on the bench, Dice might look at thinking half time, I might have to pull him here against the side that wants to go physical. But it was no bother for him whatsoever. And, I think, sad enough as it is to say, and people will give me pelters for this, Everton do well to keep him for a couple of years, I think, because he's going to be a world class defender, that lad, the way he started.
Yeah, I think with Branthwaite, one of the only way we keep him happy and keep him is to make sure he's playing regularly. We're gonna have to be patient with him because he will make mistakes. He will, he will have bad games, but we need to stick by him, especially knowing what the alternative is, because although Branthwaite might make a mistake or might have a mistake in him, hopefully he'd learn from them. Whereas the alternative has never learned from any of the mistakes that he's made and keeps making the same ones. So I think we've got to give Branthwaite the time now. He's got to be first choice or one of the first choice centre backs for me now. Certainly with this thread squad that we've ended up with. I don't think it's all as bad as what some people have said. I do think that when players are back, I think we have improved a lot of areas in the squad, but obviously the centre half positions, the full back positions, they're the ones that concern me the most. In terms of going forward, I think Beto adds a lot in terms of the shape. In terms of, I think he'll bring the best out of other players around him. Just having that mobility up front and someone who's going to cause issues for the defenders. The fact he's got a bit of pace, the fact he's good in the air, he can obviously hold the ball up well. I think he'll cause problems for most teams. I think when we've got Jack Harrison back, when we've got McNeil fully fit, if we can get Dominic Calvert-Lewin back on the pitch, when Seamus is back, it's all ifs and buts. But I think I don't think it's as bad as certainly the results are suggesting at the moment. I think the international break probably come at the right time for us, where we can regroup a bit, get some players back from injury, and get some players fully up to speed and get them bedded in. So. As I say, although there are concerns certainly at the back in terms of the centre half area and full back areas, I wouldn't be getting too carried away right now in terms of where we are in the league and the points we've picked up so far. I think there's a lot of points to play for, and I think we'll start picking them up soon.
Yeah,
I think
go on, sorry.
Me,
yeah.
I think the worry for me is we just can't get a balance, can we? So I think last season we probably had better defensive options than attacking ones. This season our attack looks a lot better after this transfer window. We've got good options, as you said. McNeil coming back today, Harrison to come back in. Beto looked good today. I think he was him and Branthwaite like two sort of like bright spots to come out of today. I think Dan Juma will get better if he gets his head up and like passes it. So I think we've got a lot of options up front. It's just defensively, it looking really, really sus now. And I think the midfield as well. I thought Garner and Onana played all right today, actually. I think probably Onana's best game of the season, I think. But still, I think, selling Iwobi, which was 100% the right thing to do as far as I'm concerned, because he wasn't going to sign a new deal. And he's got a year left on his contract, so he would have gone for nothing, which would have been, would have been terrible business for the club. But to not get anyone in to replace him, I know all the eye test people and the stats people have been arguing with each other saying he's shite and he's not shite. But the fact is, he was our most creative player. Whether you think he's shite or not, he created more chances than a lot of other players in the team. Season before that, it was Richarlison. And the two of them have gone in consecutive seasons and not been replaced. And that just leaves the team a lot weaker, I think. And that's the thing that worries me. We look like we've got like potentially a decent attack force there. But you kind of think who's going to be feeding the ball from midfield, because I don't think Garner or particularly do that. And that's the thing that worries me, the lack of balance. The one part of the pitch seems quite heavily loaded squad wise, and the other one's like not. Although there's numbers there, they're just not very good. It's mad that we're in this position, isn't it? And that's the worrying thing to me. And we should be doing better in games like that today.
Just interject there, that quick as well. One player I would say about that I've kind of forgotten about, and it's a bit of something to think about. I am not saying he's going to come back and be the prime player that he once was, but if there's a chance that Dele Alli can come in and do a job for Everton Football Club, if we can get him fit and get his head right, a simple question would be: would you rather have a prime Dele Alli or Dele, or a prime Alex Iwobi? And I think most people who watch the two of them play together, or watch the two of them play, you'd probably 9 out of 10 would say you'd want Dele.
Just going back to what we were talking about, Pete, about Alex Iwobi has left the club. Now, there's two ways of looking at it, really, isn't there? Because many fans just didn't take him or like him, or didn't think he was any good anyway, so they're happy for him to go. The amount of money as well, people are happy with, up to 22 million quid it's going to be. Regardless of how that is structured, doesn't really matter at this stage because the window's over. But the fact that we didn't get anybody in, it's a famous story for us, isn't it? That we don't sort of get anybody in, or if we do, it's normally at the last minute. The club haven't been able to get anybody additional in to replace him, if you like. So what are you looking at, thinking of the options here? Because I know people are going to be screaming it wherever they are listening to us, saying, "Oh, he's shite anyway. He's never going to get a game. He shouldn't have been playing and whatnot." But whether you believe that or you don't, there's an area there we need to fill, because he was still getting a game. He was still our starting player for us in our 11. That needs replacing. So how do we go and do it with all we have left?
Well, I think firstly with Alex Iwobi, he's kind of like the litmus test between, people who judge players purely on stats or people who judge players purely with their own eyes. I kind of sit somewhere in the middle where I could see what he contributed to the team. I could also see that he wasn't consistent. Obviously lacked goals and to be honest, assists. I know he created some chances, and maybe that wasn't necessarily his number one role on that side to get goals. But I would expect certainly when we've got Garner and Onana and Decore, I would expect that someone in Iwobi's position to contribute some goals at least to the side. So it'll be interesting to see what happens once everyone's back, because obviously, Dwight McNeil has played out wide, but also can play in that little pocket as well. He can play a slightly deeper role. Certainly for Burnley, he was the player who get on the ball and look to make things happen. Harrison as well, he's a bit more of a wide player, but he can obviously come in and do that job, and hopefully he can take on the responsibility of the getting assists for for Beto and for Dominic Calvert-Lewin or whoever else plays up front. It'll also be interesting to me to see what happens when the entire squad is fit and when we do have everyone back, because it wouldn't surprise me if Dyche did end up going for 2 up front anyway, which would using wingers and 2 midfielders, or with a 3 and then with 2 out and out centre forwards basically. So it wouldn't surprise me if Calvert-Lewin and Beto both started, which again just changes the system slightly, but could cause problems for opposition players. So yeah, I can understand the reasons for the sale. With his contract running down, his obviously refusal to sign a new contract, it seemed pretty obvious to me he wanted to move back to London. So he's got his wish. We've got a decent fee for him. Like you say, though, it's disappointing that we weren't able to get anyone else in to replace him. Certainly, even in terms of numbers for the squad, because when we looked at the bench today, we only had 7 on the bench out of a possible 9, and 2 of them were goalkeepers. So clearly, we're short of numbers. Let's say, hopefully, once everyone's back fit, things will start to look a bit better.
Yeah, the other thing we've spoken of highly, because he's been the highlight since he arrived, less than a week ago, 5 days ago, when he arrived at our club. We spent over 30 million quid for him, or what will become 30 million quid. Beto's come in and he's been like a breath of fresh air in just a few days. Now, it's easy for particularly younger people to get really excited about new signings they've got, and they start promising. This fella, and we hinted upon it earlier on at the start of this guy's coming in, and yeah, I think I'll go back and say he looks like a breath of fresh air. He certainly has been in those first 2 games. All right, yeah, one of them was against Doncaster. But this fella looks like he's got a bit of everything for us. Pete, he's got the height, he's got that physical presence. He seems to love getting involved physically with big defenders. He loves sort of throwing his body about. He's really quick as well. I think he has that many different things, that much of an attribute in certain areas of the pitch, that there'll become a time, or there will be a time right now, I think, with Sean Dyche in terms of how you use him, especially when Calvert-Lewin gets back. I've seen people saying it to me already on Twitter, saying, oh, we need to get the 2 of them, the pair of them up front. I don't think that's going to work that way. I certainly don't think it's in an Everton type of lineup anyway, but I don't think you'd see the 2 of them, because I think they'd be ultimately similar if you're trying to play them as a 4-4-2. I think I could see why he did it, but I think people would see it as controversial, or I think they'd probably not be happy with Dyche if you were to put Beto out wide or Beto a little bit deeper, even though he can do those roles efficiently and probably one of the best players that can do them for us anyway. I think when he's on the pitch and you don't play him in his natural role as a centre forward, people are going to complain about that, regardless of how good it is with him there or with him not, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, again, that's the thing that I hope he's not. I hope that isn't something that Dyche turns to just to try and
versatility threatening him. Sort of guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, we saw it with Dominic Calvert-Lewin himself when he first broke into the side, and he was playing. He started that season at right wing back, yeah, and he seemed to sort of start out wide, and we only really saw the best of him once he went down the middle, and that's clearly his best position. So yeah, it would worry me. If Beto was sort of put out wide just to accommodate bringing Dom back in, but again, it's a nice problem to have in a sense, because at least then there's competition for those places, and as I say, it's more so to do with what happens with Jack Harrison and Dwight McNeil for me as well, because if those 2 can get fully fit and firing, then they'll be creating plenty of chances for others in the middle, and then it's a straight shootout between the 2 of them who can stay fit and who can keep scoring goals. So I think if Beto carries on, if he scores goals, and if he makes the impact that we're seeing after such a short space of time, if he carries on that form, then I think it's Dominic Calvert-Lewin's. It's up to him to make an impact whenever he gets a chance. But yeah, it's a tough one. We'll see what happens. But as I say, it's just nice to have options. It's nice to be able to rotate potentially in those positions rather than putting all the pressure on the shoulders of Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So yeah, I'm really excited with Beto, to be honest with you, Dave. I think, as you've alluded to, he's been here less than a week. He only landed in the country on Monday or Tuesday. He was thrown straight in to come off the bench on Wednesday. Started in the Premier League on Saturday. He's probably only had a couple of days actually training with these players, but you're already seeing good link-up play and good little bits of play between him and the rest of the team. So I think once the international break is out of the way, certainly I think you'd alluded to before as well, he's not in the Portugal squad, so it means that he can have more time in Finch Farm to get used to the players around him. I'm really hoping that we can see the team start to gel and certainly try and start picking up some points in the Premier League after the international break.
I mean, you're probably the most positive person I know about Everton, and I think it's when me and you talk, and obviously Les, who's left us there, just before we finish. When me and you talk, I think it is an interesting debate that we have. As in, when I've got like a really, really hard conversation to have about players that have been doing my head in, you're always able to put something a little bit more of a positive spin towards them, Pete. And I think that's what a lot of people enjoy when they're listening to us. When it comes to going to this transfer window, we've travelled, we've got our first point. First 3 games were pretty much horrendous for us all to see. Then you had Beto come in, the shining light. He scored his first goal on his debut. All right, it was at Doncaster. He had a really positive effect with how he did here at Sheffield United. I remember a lot of the times in the past when we've actually built some momentum, getting an international break was just the worst thing for us, because you're then waiting for 2 weeks. You've got to send players away on international breaks and all that. At this stage now, I'm happy that we've got this break, because you've got a new striker there that you need to bed into this side, and it's already looked really positive already for Dyche. And then if you've got them in and around the changing room, in and around the training, that already is a boost for us to try a few new things, get Beto bedded into this side before everyone else comes back. You mentioned Chimiti before as well. Don Juma will be away, but when he comes back, these guys that have come in need as much experience as we can get in and amongst Finch Farm and the players around them. So I think this is really important for Sean Dyche and everybody else to use these breaks for international players to our advantage.
Yeah, and the other thing as well to bear in mind, this is something that which sometimes people look at me like I've got 2 heads when I say this, but in terms of defensively as well, if you're training defenders and you're trying to set defenders up to defend, whether it's set pieces, whether it's just generally an open play, I'm convinced that the issue we've had up front has had a direct impact on the issue that we've got at the back, because the defenders haven't been playing against top-class centre forwards every day in training. They haven't been playing. They haven't been tested in training. They haven't actually. Do you know what I mean by that? Like,
yeah,
because if all they're coming up against in training are the people that we see as being, insufficient for our squad, then they're not being tested. So as soon as they come up against anyone who is half decent, they crumble. So for me, bringing in proper centre forwards doesn't just include, improve us in a sense of going forward, but just in a plain and simple, being able to train the defenders properly. I actually feel that it's going to have a decent knock-on effect as well, because the defenders will be tested properly in training rather than just having Neil Maupay buzzing around them. So yeah, it's a crucial international break this for us. I'm certainly not. It's not one of those times where I'm devastated there's an international break just as we pick up some momentum. I actually think it's probably at the exact right time. It's good that we've managed to not lose today. Disappointing that we didn't win. Obviously, I think that we dominated large parts of the game. Certainly earlier on, we switched off twice and got punished for it, and then we could have been even worse at the end if it wasn't for Jordan Pickford. So I think we take the point, lick our wounds, and hopefully come back after the international break with a bit of a spring in our step and looking to prove a few people wrong, and hopefully we can start getting some points on the board.
And yeah, just to finish up, it doesn't get much tougher than we've got a hassle at home when we come back from the international break. So that'll be interesting to see if we've sorted anything out with the players that we have got that haven't gone away on international break. Thanks, Pete, as always. Thanks to everyone for listening. We're sorry this is a little bit later than usual, immediately after the game finishes, but we've had a few tech issues, but that happens at times, doesn't it? Everton are playing again for a fortnight. The 16th, isn't it? We're home against Arsenal, so there'll be a post-match after that, of course, but up to that point, we don't stop. Plenty of podcasts all over the place. Do join us on Patreon. It's really cheap to join us. We love your support. We love your comments, and there's always bagfuls of things happening every single day with all of the content we put out there. And of course, the weekly, which is always free as well. Thanks so much for your support, and we'll speak to you, tomorrow and every other day in the week. Thanks for listening to us all the time, and up the toffees.